So I didn't per se have a drug relapse after my commitment, but I know you did. So what was that like? Like, how did you get to that terrible spot where you're thinking to your head that it's okay now to put this substance in my body that you cognitively know is going to destroy you?
So to start telling my story, I actually felt like I was both feet in when I went into the 12 step program. I also had this attitude of, is this program or nothing? I didn't, at least uh, I didn't explicitly think to myself, you know, someday maybe I will be able to drink again or use drugs again. I really did not want to do it at all. But I still ended up relapsing 6 months into recovery. Today, I understand why that happened to some extent. When we talk about addiction and alcoholism, um, it's a very tricky condition. In our program, we call it a disease, right? A malady. Um, it can lie to us in so many different ways that it's sometimes very hard to recognize what's true and what's not. And that was my case because when I worked the 12 steps, it produced this beautiful, liberating experience for me where my desire to drink and use drugs went away. And not only that, I actually felt so much better than I did when I first came into the program. Like I experienced that happy, joyous, and free feeling that people talked about. That's why I knew that there was something incredibly valuable there for me, that not only was I happy that I'd done it, but I wanted to continue to expand on that experience and pursue that path. However, 6 months into working the steps, this little snake of an idea entered my mind. And that idea was, you used to drink and use drugs because you felt miserable. You were full of anxiety, you had depression, you had no purpose. But now that you feel connected, now that you feel happy, maybe, just maybe, if you drink, it won't be the same story. I'm not going to end up drinking the whole 26er and end up at a bar and then waking up in a stranger's bed, right? So that was the delusion that crept into my mind. I feel different. Maybe now I can control my drinking, right? So I decided to try some experimenting. And to keep a long story short, my wife and I went for a wine tasting. Um, there was a small little voice in the back of my head that expressed some worry about what I was about to do, but there was a much louder voice saying, it's just going to be an experiment. And if the end result is that you can't stop after a couple of drinks, then all you did was you kind of told yourself or convinced yourself that yes, you are a full-on alcoholic and you shouldn't ever drink again. So when we did start drinking, I remember feeling good for the first 30 minutes, maybe an hour. But then suddenly I experienced this change in my awareness. Everything's like the walls started to close in on me. I started to feel this sense of negativity creeping into me because I'd arrived there feeling incredibly happy and incredibly positive, and suddenly I started to become negative. And so my solution for that was, well, maybe I just need to drink a little bit more, and it'll take me back to that nice, elevated, buzzed up state. But it didn't. The more I kept drinking, the worse I felt, but I still continued to drink. And so it all kind of ended up with us in our hotel room at the end of the night, me opening up yet another bottle of wine, and then my wife crying on the bed because, she was recognizing that I kind of went back into my old ways. And so when I had that relapse the next morning, I woke up and I said to myself, I never want to drink again because I didn't even enjoy drinking. And so what I started to do was I started to practice everything that I was practicing up until that point, which is, going to meetings, meditations. I was sponsoring people at the time, I'm pretty sure. I was I was doing pretty much everything that I was doing before that. But you know what the strange thing is? I did not feel good. And I couldn't put my finger on it. I was like, I'm doing everything that the program teaches me to do, but I don't feel good. Now, here's the caveat to that. I told my
Mhm.
sponsor what had happened, and he said, "Oh, okay, like I'm sorry to hear that, and I guess you'll be picking up that newcomer chip." So, for those who don't know what that is, in the 12-step program, we get chips for periods of sobriety. So, let's say you were 30 days sober, you get a 30-day chip, a 1 month, or sorry, 2 month chip, 6 month chip, etc. So, up until that point, I already had my 6 month chip. Now, I told him, I said, well, I don't think that was really a relapse because it was just I said it was just an experiment. So I don't think I really need to pick up that chip because I'm just right back into the program and I'm fine. And he said, okay. He didn't even push me into it. He said, okay, that's your choice. I said, okay, cool. So like I said, I continued to do everything that I was doing, but for 2 weeks I felt worse and worse and worse. So for some reason the program wasn't working. Now, it got so bad that at a certain point, I remember I was driving to work and I had to pull over into a park. And
Yeah.
I sat in that park feeling like I wanted to jump out of my skin. And like I felt like I was going to pick up at that point. And I started to pray and really seriously just ask God. I said, God, please show me what I need to do because I can't go on feeling this way. If I'm going to work this program and still feel like shit, then I might as well start using drugs again. What do I do? And then boom, the thought flashed into my mind, pick up that newcomer chip. As soon as that thought came to me, I felt 50% better. I felt a sense of relief. So the next day I went to a meeting. It was very difficult for me because obviously there was a lot of pride and ego blocking me. But I got the chip and like I was back. I was back into that beautiful state that I felt as we were driving to do the wine tasting. Right. So to me, that showed me how honest I have to be, how connected I have to be to my conscience, that it's not just about the drinking or using drugs. It's really about living a life of truth, right? Of connection, where I'm no longer lying to myself. I can't sell dope and stay sober. You know what I mean? I can't yell at my family and then not apologize, right? And stay sober. I can't do these little things that a lot of people can get away with if I'm the real deal, because all of these things, my pride, my dishonesty, my anger, my resentment, take me further away from God. And when I'm further away from God, then I don't have any recovery. And it's only a matter of time. So that was really the big lesson for me out of that whole relapse.